chegar lá, cara, nós vamos no... É um condomínio. Nós vamos no edifício.
Hello, bonjour. My name is Paulo de Castro Reis, and I'm the Executive Director of CCBC. Welcome to the first Brazilian Week CCBC Online Festival, a digital event organized by CCBC, the Chamber of Commerce Brasil-Canada, in partnership with the Brazilian Embassy in Ottawa, the Brazilian consulates in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, and sponsored by Air Canada. The festival presents more than 20 webinars covering three main areas: business opportunities, innovation, and Brazilian culture. Besides, the Brazilian Week website offers free access to more than 200 cultural contents. I would like to start this session by calling Leandro Ferron, Director of Innovation and Investments at SP Negócios, to moderate this session.
Good afternoon, Paulo. Thank you so much to present us in the festival. It would be a pleasure to contact and to talk about the innovation in the ecosystem at São Paulo. And as you mentioned, I'm a Director of Innovation Investments at São Paulo Negócios, and I have a pleasure to introduce Amanda Graciano, that will be with us. Amanda.
Hi,
you,
hello,
Amanda.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Amanda. Amanda is Head of Portfolio and Business Development at IDEXO in São Paulo. It's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to introduce Gustavo Araújo. Gustavo is mute.
Hi, hello guys. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Gustavo. Gustavo is co-founder at Distrito at São Paulo. And let's talk about the innovation. And here we have a lot of issues to talk. And first of all, I'd like to ask Amanda, what is your opinion on the model of startups in Brazil and facilitate the change management during the COVID-19? What's your impression about it?
Well, in my opinion, health techs, HR techs, and retail techs has a good business model to help companies in this moment, because they can digitalization the process, né? And keep us in social distance. This is our problem now. So these technologies and these companies can help us more than, for example, technology we can use in theaters or shows or shopping malls. We have a problem here yet in Brazil. We have more problem with COVID-19. And I think technology who can keep us in social distance can facilitate this moment now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gustavo, how about your impression about the model of startups in Brazil and how it facilitated change management during COVID-19 in your view?
Yes. So we had like, I guess, a huge positive impact from technology in the market, right? So actually, technology right now and startups are kind of the light in the end of the tunnel, right? For job creation, for like keeping companies alive and working. So, and that's why we can see even not in small companies like startups, but in Brazil, if we look at the tech companies, they are worth more in the stock market than before the crisis, right? So the world needs more tech, not less. And that's what we are seeing. So I guess many companies kind of received a awakening call as well for like digitalization, omni-channel, and other transformation initiatives. And most of them don't have enough time to build their own solutions, so they are now running to connect with startups. So open innovation is being huge now in Brazil in order to transform those companies and prepare those for like the present, right? So this new normal or new market that's more connected and digital. So that's what we are looking at. Just in Brazil, we had like from January to June, 149 M&As between companies and startups. So it's a pretty hot zone right now. Companies are learning to invest and to buy in startups, and we are in the beginning of this this movement. So we are really in the starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hot moment here in Brazil. And of course, that startups has a huge impact to supporting the management of the pandemic at São Paulo, absolutely. Offer information to the population and support with different products in technology, the companies in order to manage the COVID-19 here. And what's your feelings about it, Amanda?
Yes, I think this moment is startups and this kind of company, startups a company too. We can learn a lot of things about management, about keep market alive, like Gustavo says. It's a moment to understand how we can build this new normal, because the things will be this for a long time,
Sure.
and we need to understand how do business, how you can we need to understand about investment, about do open innovation in this moment, because we know do open innovation when everything is okay, when we don't have pandemic. But in this moment, how you can create more jobs, how you can support more startups, how you can build a huge ecosystem like how our country. Yes, because in São Paulo, it's okay when we think business, but in other, where in Brazil, we have a lot of ecosystem and need to build in this time. So we need to understand more how you can do what we do in São Paulo in another states here.
Yeah, I'm impressive how quick the startups in Brazil changed the business model in order to help the companies to manage the COVID-19. I think it's a kind of a very good example to the other countries here. And you, Gustavo, what do you think about it?
Yes. So what we are seeing now is we are an innovation network of hubs, right? So Distrito has now 5 buildings, and we just launched our hubs for startups and corporations. So we believe it's not even fair to compete with a company if they are using open innovation, right? So if you are a player and you don't innovate open innovation, and you are competing against someone that has open innovation, it's not even fair, the competition, because companies that are using open innovation, they can launch new products, new services. They can improve a lot faster than companies that are only creating their own technology, their own products, right? So I guess companies now learn that. And what we are seeing in Brazil is big decentralization process. So of course, half of the startups are in São Paulo state. So I would say, depending on the category, but for people that are watching us in Canada, I can say like 50% of the startups are in São Paulo state, right? And then you have like maybe 70%, 75% in Southeast part of Brazil. But right now we have technology being created all over Brazil. We have right now, I would say, around 1,500 co-working spaces or innovation spaces where those startups are. When we met the startups in Brazil, because we are like for 3 years now, actually 3 years and a half, tracking every startup in Brazil, right? So if you are a startup and you open a company, you are being tracked by Distrito. So, and we are looking at how many employees you have, how much you are revenuing, if you received investment or not. So, and what the data shows is decentralization is big. So we have like startups being created all over the country and innovation hubs popping up all over the country. So the same movement we saw like maybe 5-6 years ago when technology started to decentralize from Silicon Valley and other centers of innovation. Now it's happening in Brazil, decentralizing from São Paulo and going for the countryside, not only capitals, but each city that has a university, it's opening a lab or an innovation center. So that's a big movement.
Yeah, I agree with this. And in fact, even if São Paulo has a robust innovation ecosystem, I'm sure that this movement is happening in Brazil. We are sure about it. And I think it's important in order to distribute the technology and innovation for all over the country. I think that could be a new structure to support a new normal. I'm sure. And going forward, for example, after the pandemic, we have some new habits, of course, and such as, for example, if you would like to buy something, we receive a lot of offers, including more products in the packages. So even if we buy something every week, for example, we change it to buy a month a much more products than we had before, and other changes like the collaborative economy, for example, in how we can see this among this movement and these new habits in the consumers and the population here.
This movement is very important and interest in the now, because for us, for example, we use technology. We are heavy user, technology is heavy user, but this moment make all the population more agile. For in business, in companies, so we can see more agile management, digital think. For me, digital think is very, very important. So we can see companies, they don't have open innovation process, but they are more digital. They have more digital think. The population use more digital platforms. For example, delivery platforms here. they have a boom, a huge growth in this moment. There are any solutions. For example, HR techs, because here we have a lot of jobs and startups, for example, and all the process now was digitalization, and HR techs help a lot in this time. So for me now, the new normal or the other word we use, the digitalization and the digital think will be keep for more time.
Yeah. And Gustavo, talking about, for example, the centralization of the economy, especially in São Paulo, when you have neighborhoods or mini ecosystems, right, in each neighborhood and neighbors, and in order to help people, for example, you have a small market close to your house, for example, you'd like to buy in this vendor instead of buying another one in order to help. So it means that the economy at São Paulo is moving forward to decentralization to the different regions here. What's your impression about it?
Yeah, so yeah, we can see it's not, I would not say it's a trend yet. Okay, so data is still weak for us to say that this is a trend, but we can see movements towards sustainability. Okay, so right now we see a wave of social businesses as well, trying to compete with iFood or Uber or these kind of platforms because like the market thinks that they abuse from the parties, right? So the market thinks that those platforms, they get so much high percentage of the trip, of the delivery, of the restaurant, that's not healthy. And if you are a delivery person or a driver or even a restaurant, you kind of become like hostage of the platform because you cannot turn it off later because you rely on that platform in order to survive. So you are kind of stuck in it, right? So right now we see a huge wave of startups trying to compete with a more healthier business. So taking less percentage from drivers, from delivery persons, and so on, and also sustainability and also local consumption, right? Because when you are in a crisis, like the huge markets, they are gonna survive. The ones that after the crisis, the big companies are the one that survives. So in order to protect this local consumer, this local shop, there are also some movements around like incentivizing local consumption, local stores, local shops, so you can help them to survive. Because what we are seeing is they are kind of shutting their doors now when they are reopening, right? So while we were closed, you were able to renegotiate rent, to have some government benefits in order to pay your employees and so on. But once you reopen with 30-40% of your original revenue, and you don't have any incentives, and your landlord is not going to give you discount anymore, and that's when businesses are shutting down. So I guess this is a trend. This is kind of a movement, not a trend yet, because there's a really small number of companies and initiatives around that, because this is pretty new. But that's something that we see happening. Maybe it's the beginning of a movement, right? But it's still not strong enough to be like a trend.
In fact, when we are talking about this reopen, the costs is very important, of course, because the revenues decrease. So in this case, the logistics of the structure of each company is very important. that's the reason that we are seeing a movement, especially startups, to help the companies with this type of logistics. And it's very important the consumer is closer to the companies. It's something that we are seeing here. And because we are not working at work anymore, we are at home working, right? So in this case, we save the salary that we are consuming close to our work. We started to consuming at home, close to our home. So that's the reason that we are seeing this decentralization. And of course, it's important to reduce costs, especially in logistics point of view. So, and I think you are seeing the same movement, Amanda, right?
Yes, we see a movement to understand, serve better our consumer. And I see some companies design strategies to do it better, and more this care for the client and understand what they needs, other needs, and see these other needs. We can make, for example, other products or other offers, bundle, for example, a bundle for solutions, and give for this consumer what they need, because in this moment we need another things. So we need another things, and we have this client, this consumer want to be alive. And this is another problem. So if your solution, and startups have a lot of solutions, can serve this consumer and keep him in home and better and alive. So understand logistics is a process, one thing in this process. So understand this better. And we see a lot of companies to change their mind in consumer and understand the needs in consumer in this moment and give the needs.
They are changing their minds in order to put the client as a center of the business. And I think it's very important to the new world, the customer experience, that would be a choice decision in order to buy one product in order to another one. So, and I think it's a challenge to, in this over to the future, to grow the business, because the growing is not will be the same anymore comparing with the past, the last time, right? And how your vision about this, Gustavo, how the business will recover in the future? It would be nothing to do regarding to the next 5 to 10 years, right?
Yes. So that's a good moment to be alive, I would say. Very good moment to be an entrepreneur, because when the market resets like this, you have a better chance of creating a new business and growing it pretty fast to become relevant. And it's very challenging to be in a leading position right now, because the market conditions changed a little bit faster than maybe you were thinking of, and now you have to adapt even faster to maintain leadership. So corporations are being challenged in their markets, and what we see is what the startup market and maybe, like I would say, tech companies, what they realized before other companies, that the key is not on the brand, but in the experience. The key is not in the margin of a unit sale, but in the lifetime value of your customer, and that's structural. So if your company is thinking about selling products, is thinking about unit margin, is thinking about brand, you are not ready for this market, right? So you're gonna be eaten by startups and digital companies that are better adapted to this new environment, this new customer. So, and that's something that we always say, like technology is nothing alone, right? So what shifts is consumer behavior. So the only thing that puts technology companies and startups in a kind of in the focus right now is that they realize that maybe before the traditional companies, right? So they realize these shifts in behavior, and now they have products aligned to this new behavior. So that's the main thing, and that's because it's hard to transform a company, because you gotta change the structure of it, the business structure, the business monetization engine. So that's the main challenge big companies are facing, and that's maybe the biggest advantage of startups and tech companies, because they are born already with that in their DNA. So that's why they grow a lot faster, right? So
yeah. In fact, the big companies need to change the business model, as you mentioned. It's not so easy to do that because the size of that companies. However, we have a lot of opportunities to the startups to help the big companies to change their minds and offer products to that companies to help in order to change the business model. And I see a lot of big companies that was trying to change the business model, invest a lot of money without success. So in the same times that these big companies change the business model and try to contract startups to help the company to change the business model, to use data, for example, to change the customer experience, to design the customer experience. I think it's very important. These big companies started to create a new model. I think that will be this configuration to the future. What do you think, Amanda, about it?
So
especially you, because you were working close to the TOTUS, right?
yes.
So TOTUS is not a small company in this case.
No, it's a big software company in Brazil.
Right, exactly.
For example, in Dexo, in TOTUS, we see startups in a lot of places. Yeah, startups can be a supplier, of course, but startups for us, they are business partnering, and we can design new solutions. We always look for this because we believe we don't need to design all the software solutions for Brazilian clients, but we know with startups, we can learn more fast and design new solutions for this moment, for another moment, for what the new consumers' behaviors. And we can be business partner, not just this relationship, that supplier relationship. We know this is good, but I think we have a lot of another avenues. We always say this, we have another avenues with startups. We can see this because Gustavo says this, it's not just have a huge growth in a short time more. The startups have a LTV, long time value. They have this, they understand this, they know how understand the client's needs and how keep the client for more time in a fast way. Agile management, it's a startup thing, a startup way. So there we always, my job is see, okay, this startup can be a business partner for us, not just a supplier. Supplier is easy, someone can buy startup solution and it's okay, but business partnering is always what you see there.
Yeah, absolutely. The lifetime value of the customer is something that the industries are seeing as a diamond. That's the point. So lifetime value could, for example, transform the revenues with the frequency. That is very important in the business model, and we can create value. That's the point of the lifetime value. I agree totally with you guys. And for example, in talking about, for example, the role of the decentralized ecosystems that is happening right now, for example, I see that technology sometimes excludes the population to the market, for example. In our lives, technology can exclude some in part of the time. However, at the same time, technology can include the population into the ecosystem and in our social life. So, and I think that this decentralized ecosystems all over the country could help us to include a lot of population that right now it's isolated when we are talking about technology and don't have access to, for example, to have a new experience, to buy something or to use the mobility, the new mobility, for example. And I think it's very important to the country. And for example, Gustavo, what's your impression about this decentralized ecosystem in order to include the population to have a high quality in terms of the lifestyles and the work?
Yeah, so what we see is the size of the market when you apply technology and people have access to technology increases a lot, right? So what we are seeing now with fintechs now in Brazil, of course, we need to have the regulator opening the market, but we had like 2/3 of the population without any financial access, right? Totally out of the financial system, because the 5 major banks of Brazil, they just wanted to serve 1/3 of the population, the 1/3 that's the richest one, right? So then you have 2/3 of the population without access to a credit card, without access to a bank account, without access to insurance. Exactly. So and then when you have all the fintechs, of course they have lower costs because they are digital companies, so they don't have physical branch, they don't have like as many employees as traditional banks, so they can work with a lot lower prices, and they can actually target the people that are out of the system, right? So we have right now digital banks that are targeting these 2/3 of the population that didn't have a credit card before. So technology is creating access to many services, and the same is happening with health, right? So when you have like small hospitals around Brazil and they'll have like specialists in, let's say, head, and you have an injury, by using telemedicine, you can have through lower cost a consultation with a specialist in head injuries, right? So that's happening. We see that, of course, the world's becoming more connected, more open, and we are working more in networks, and COVID kind of accelerated this movement, and that's we are in the early days of this movement. So if you are a company and you don't have like an ecosystem strategy or open strategy, you are probably in very danger for the next few years, because you are kind of going for an infrastructural business, right? Because if there is something that kills you in this market is not having like a horizontal expansion, right? So this is another thing that's a huge differentiator from digital companies when we compare to traditional companies. So yeah, that's it. So this ecosystem is actually part of what we are living now, and it's going to be richer and richer, and it's going to increase a lot more. So more innovation hubs, more startups, more entrepreneurs, more digital products. That's gonna only increase for the next.
Yeah, and try to create a new market, as you mentioned. There is a part of the market that cannot consume, cannot have any credit or credit card or bank account. And we saw this movement here when Caixa Econômica Federal opened a lot of digital accounts to buy the money for the people, right? And something that we spent 30 years ago to try to include this population in the system, and we didn't have any success. And with this pandemic, in I think 1 week, would be able to put this 50 million people in the market. And this is something that we need to think about and try to identify our misunderstandings in the past and try to correct the future, I'm sure. And how about you, Amanda? What's your feelings about it?
So diversity is something what I love. So yes, we need to understand the consumer, but we need to think about the teams and the people who develops these solutions, because if you don't have this diversity in these teams, in these companies, probably we don't have the solution for these people too. In this movement to put the consumer in the center of the business model can help this. For example, Gustavo says a lot of things about Brazil, and digital companies think of a large market and they think about Brazil in these characteristics. However, it's a great opportunity to build and serve this market. And Brazil is a market, and we need a lot of solutions. And here, the startups and these entrepreneurs is building these solutions. Probably the solutions can be different for these people. We're talking about, for example, the people, they don't have access to credit, for example, but can use the digital solutions, probably different digital solutions. But here in Brazil, I see actors, entrepreneurs, traditional companies and digital companies think about these ecosystems. Here we have a lot of solutions. For example, in TOTS have the same product to large companies, small companies, and medium companies. It's the same product, but the way to sell and attend this consumer is different, totally different, because the needs is different. Here we are prepared to attend this moment, and it's startup digital companies more than.
Sure, absolutely. And we have here in São Paulo, I think, an opportunity to take an infrastructure to receive, for example, new products, or to receive new solutions. It's a kind of soft landing environment here in São Paulo. I'm sure about it. Of course, we are increasing this soft landing environment all over the country, I'm sure. Especially in São Paulo, I think we are prepared to receive new things, to receive new products, to prototype some products, to receive different MVPs in order to use the population and try to create new things and offer innovation to the population. And I think it's very important when we are talking about a recovery of our economy. And Gustavo, what's your feelings about this soft landing, this vocation of the city in order to receive these new things and this innovation through the city here?
Okay, so first of all, let me just give you a kind of scenario when we compare to 2008, right? So we had in 2008 big financial crisis, and the risk capital goes away from venture, right? So from startups, because of course investors are looking for more secure investments and not risky ones when you have the crisis. And that's what we saw in now during the crisis in Brazil as well. So, but with an exception. So seed rounds and Series A rounds, they keep growing. Like, so even like seed rounds actually grew in March, April, June, and July. So we didn't even see a gap on it, right? So because we are talking about like not a lot of money and good product we will always have access to money, we think. So we see investors keep pouring money in seed and Series A rounds. Series A and Series B, they suffer more because like bigger checks but we expect if we have a recovery like 2008, that's gonna be a V-curve recovery, right? So we'll be higher in funding by the end of the year if we have the same behavior when we compare to 2008. So what is technology is gonna keep being created. Entrepreneurs are gonna keep being funded, especially in the early stages. What's gonna like be difficult right now, it's like bigger checks like the one we had with Neon Bank last week. So Neon Bank last week raised the biggest round in Brazil this year. That was $300 million round, and that's a lot more difficult in this environment. But we still see a lot of investment going for early stage startups. So that doesn't stop with the crisis. And what we saw is like I said at the beginning, many companies took this opportunity for M&A or to absorb startups, because if you are running away of cash and then you are kind of without many options, and one good option is always to merge with a bigger company than you, right? So we saw an increase in that number of deals in June, especially. I don't know if I asked your question, Ferron, but that's how we see the recovery in terms of technology production and funding in startups from now.
Yeah, but I think it's these a lot of investments that we have right now. The environment of the city in the country, in order to receive new products and MVPs, it's something that helps. That's we are close in this vision, I think. And Amanda, what's your feelings about the soft landing, this environment of the city in order to receive the MVPs, the prototypes, and the investments, as Gustavo mentioned, that continues to be made? What's your vision about it? You're moved.
Yes, I don't actually looking much to investment in our startups, but I agree with Gustavo when he says there is money, but there aren't big checks in this moment. But startups continue capitalizing, growing, and seek are the initiatives to keep growing. And for example, today, Google for Startups in Brazil announced a fund to invest in startup in seed stage. So we can see here, yes, have money and we have startups, but big checks in this moment we don't have. So we need to look for another ways to keep and maintain the companies. But these jobs, okay. Everyone can, just the solutions they need to, just the solution can keep the people in social distance. Yes, they are okay, but solutions they need the people together and they keep the people together. These solutions, they will have a problem yet, the problem to keep the growing, because they can do this. But there are the solutions, there are the digital companies, they are okay yet. But we don't have big techs now.
Yeah, we have good startups here to invest. We have a good companies. We continue to have market, I think, in order to put money. I think our problem in Brazil, I used to say that it's not a money, it's a good company to be invested. And we have good startups and good ideas to receive money.
And
investors.
Leandro, just one thing, as we are talking to Canadians, a lot of Canadians here, right? So Brazil is a big market, and São Paulo especially, like, maybe if you have a tech solution or if you want to address this market, well, of course it's the right city, right? So like the headquarters of most companies, if you are a B2B solution, are mainly here, except by regional leaders that are in other capitals. But so São Paulo right now, as we also talked about in the beginning, is like the center of technology creation and the market, and even for B2B, the center for headquarters and so on. So if you are a Canadian startup or a tech company and wants to come to Brazil, São Paulo is the right city. And many companies, I know a Canadian company we are partnering right now. It's Strategy AI. It's one of the main AI companies in Canada. Canada is one of the main AI countries in the world, right? So so we are soft landing Strategy AI in Brazil right now. We are doing that through São Paulo, accessing like big corporate clients at this moment, and this is a huge market. So I would say if you are a Canadian company that wants to reach you of course you are thinking about USA, right? So if you are a Canadian company, you think about US market, but then if you want to go further and far, then you I would say your next option is Brazil, and inside Brazil, São Paulo. So that's
sure. As you mentioned, there is a kind of internalization that I will mention in the end of our panel here and our discussion. But okay, we start to talk about internationalization. I think it's very important because for different companies after COVID-19, the countries start to help each other. So this movement happens with the companies, right? So, and I think it's very important because our country, it's an open country. We receive a lot of different solutions here in companies and countries in different parts of the world. So, and I agree with you, and we have a great opportunity to receive foreign investments, especially at São Paulo, and for example, startups from Canada, in order to change and to create things together here at São Paulo. I'm sure that we have. Amanda, do you see this movement about internationalization and the countries help each other and startups work together in different countries? What are your vision about it?
For me, internationalization can work good because we way to conquer the market, maximize the demand and sales volume, and addiction to consolidation, the brand reputation. And we have a lot of startups here can do this. We have now startups they are doing this now. And Gustavo says, of course, we are thinking USA, but if you're looking for other America, probably you need to think in Brazil, because when we say about South America, we say about Brazil.
Yeah.
It's more part of this in the other countries. And when you talk about innovation ways, innovation process, startups, we always, in South America, we always think in Brazil. Always we do. I always say this because what we're doing now here, we can do in other countries in South America. So Brazil, it's a good way, a good country to see this and look for what these startups are doing. We're talking about digital companies, digital credit. Here we are implement a lot of things in this way to give the people more money, ways to give people money in this moment. And internationalization is a way to do this. And we have a lot of startups doing this when they don't have investment and big checks. Internationalization is a way to do this too.
In fact, it helps us to recover the economy. If you take a look at the numbers of our export situation in Brazil, a lot of countries needed food and healthy solutions, and Brazil exports a lot in this period. So it's important to the countries are open in order to change and to transfer the technology for using things. I think it's very important. I have an example here in our city in terms of the mobility. The bus in the city needs to be according to the C40 regulation in terms of sustainability and pollution, for example. And we don't have any company in Brazil that can provide a bus solution with 100% of the sustainability according to the law. So in this case, we need the foreign companies, and it's not a supplier, as you mentioned. We need, of course, buy a solution abroad. However, we need to transfer the technology, because otherwise we continue to have the same problem. We don't have any company in Brazil to support buses to have 100% cover in terms of the law of the sustainability. So being this type of example, we have a lot in the country. So that's the reason that's important, the internalization solution, that we have this type of technology, and I think it's important to our economy, I'm sure. And talking about the mindset, Gustavo, that we talked a little bit, I think a few days ago, I think we are seeing a movement to change the mindset in terms of investments in startups or scale-ups especially, because for a long period of time in that past, the investments will see a cash burn as a normal way to growth, of course, and support a long-term this cash burn. However, we are after the pandemic, of course, this type of vision changed a little bit. Try to be closer with something near to the break-even point, or something like that, or a short cash burn with a short period of time. As you have at the street, we see a lot of the ecosystem. What's your vision about the investment that we are receiving here?
Yeah, so I see that this crisis kind of realized the market, right? So companies by 2019, last year, they were over evaluated. So valuations were too high. They were not, I would say, healthy in terms of valuation. And investors, of course, were paying too high to invest in those companies. And whenever you have this mindset, this cash burn mindset, it's very dangerous, because if you fail to raise the next round, then you are done, right? And you close your company. So In other hand, what we see now is more entrepreneurs living that dream of the cash burn and high rounds every year, and trying to build more sustainable businesses, making money from day one. So here now in Brazil, we say the camels against the unicorns, right? So you are not gonna fly, but you are gonna go slower and much longer. So and that's the shift in mindset that we see. So more and more entrepreneurs that are willing to create healthy and sustainable business that are profitable, not growing as fast as unicorn or cash burn business models, but you have the business in your hands, right? So because those cash burns models, of course, if you are let's say an entrepreneur and you really like your business and you don't want to sell it cheap, you gotta go for a more sustainable path, because if you go for the cash burn and you raise around every year, in 3 to 4 years you are a VC company. So your company is owned by VCs only, and they are the ones taking the decisions, and you are a passenger in your own company. So this shifting mindset is giving more power to entrepreneurs, because they save more equity in their hands. They build sustainable businesses. They don't need as a cash burn model. So this is totally something that we see as a shift in the market.
Sure. And you, Amanda, what's your vision about this? I'm sure that TOTVS are making a lot of investments, and I don't know if the board changed the mindset to see the results instead of a lot of cash burns. And what do you think about
TOTVS growing design a huge M&A strategy. So yes, I believe more in camels than unicorns. Unicorns don't exist, and this approach worked here, and for example Silicon Valley for a long time. But I agree with Gustavo because these founders know to build a successful business, it's not a sprint. So don't exist cash burn a lot of money in a small time. For this business model, its main strategy take time. In this moment, we need to develop solid business model, create products. They are interest for consumers, and structure and distribution. Clarify. TOTVS do this so better, because we have TOTVS all the country, every country in all the Brazilian states, we have the company. And yes, venture capital is a powerful tool. However, it does not work for every entrepreneur in every solution. And when we think about camels, they know this, and they work have a company for a long time. For me, this strategy work more better. And think this, we can do more products, we can have more clients, we can do more things. TOTVS do this for 40 years. So I prefer this kind of business model. Yes. Because we're talking about lifetime value. Yes, I prefer this than unicorns.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And I think that the business is in your hand. That's the point, as Gustavo mentioned. When you have the business in your hand, you'll be able to manage it and to do the change management or a turnaround if it's necessary with more efficiency. And would like, in fact, would like to be sustainable at the time. So in this case, we'll be more prepared to the crisis in the future, because the business is in your hand. I think this is a very important issue here. And being we don't have any more big checks, I think it's very difficult to create or to start a new business with a long-term cash burn. I don't think we have this type of big caches to support this. I think in the last 2 to 3 years, we had this type of situation, but I think the market changed and we will not have this, not anymore, but I think the next 2 to 3 years, maybe we are not have this type of big checks. So, and I think if we'd like to spend 2 to 3 hours discussing the ecosystem innovation, we would be able to do that, right? Because it's very good to discuss the ecosystem, the diversity, and with these two guys, these special people. But we can open to the questions, I think, because we have just for 10 to 40 minutes, and maybe if we have a question, we can answer. Let me see here in the chat. If someone would like to do a question, we are open. Let's see if you receive here. Or a questions or a commentary. We started the discussion with 30 to 31 people. We continue to have, I think, the same size. So it means that we have a very good discussion, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Someone would like to do the question or not? No. I saw Paulo. Paulo was there. No. Okay, so let's move on. So I would like to say thank you so much for you, Amanda, to help us in this discussion. I'll give you 30 seconds to your comments, to the final comments.
Thank you so much, Ferron. Thank you for the invite. I love talking about this theme with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. And you, Gustavo, I would like to thank you for your considerations here and your explanation. It was very, very good. And I hope you have a little bit more in the future, in the next discussions.
Sure, no, it was a pleasure to participate, always great. So, and I'll leave the invitation for anyone that wants to know Distrito. It's www.distrito.me. M from Maria, E from Elephant. So we have many reports around Brazilian ecosystem, Brazilian startup market, from verticals like retail tech, health tech, fintech, any vertical. So you can access reports and see what are the main startups transforming those markets. So I encourage the people that's watching us to go there and download the report. So it's a great material to understand more about the Brazilian ecosystem.
Yeah, and I would like to leave an invitation for everybody we will have a São Paulo Tech Week, SPTW, that will happen in November 21st to 27th. It's one of the biggest innovation day technology festivals of the world that will happen here in São Paulo. This year the event will be 100% online, as we are doing in the CCB panel, and we received more than 250,000 people in the last 5 years. That would be a pleasure to receive everybody in the festival, and I'd like to give you an invite. Okay, thank you, Amanda, thank you, Gustavo, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, the speakers, and thank you, everybody. I would like just to call everyone's attention to the São Paulo as event here in Brazil on the last week of November. And CCBC will be organizing, as we usually do every year, what we call the Canada House at São Paulo Tech Week. So all the Canada-related events during the Tech Week are hosted by CCBC through our platforms and through our structure. Every year we have various webinars, just like we are having here at the festival, at this festival, but only tech related from various different companies, cities, technologies around Canada, showcasing their products and looking for Brazilian partnerships. So this is an open invitation for Canadians to connect with the Chamber of Commerce Brazil-Canada and look for information regarding the São Paulo Tech Week and the Canada House at our website and through our social media, and apply either to participate actively in a webinar or just to watch the presentations. Once more, thank you everyone, and keep connected for our future webinars today and the following days. Thank you. Bye-bye.